It is known as the Great American Race, but race fans had to wait an extra day to watch the 66th annual Daytona 500. Poor weather pushed the start of the NASCAR Cup Series to Monday, and today 40 drivers are racing a total of 804 kilometers at speeds that top 320 kilometers per hour, all at the iconic Daytona International Speedway in Florida. Now, only one driver will come out on top, but NASCAR fans know the real winners are the sponsors behind these racing teams. Isabella Diaz explains.
When it comes to NASCAR, it's not just the drivers that make auto racing a sight to behold. It's the sponsors that adorn each and every fire suit and stock car. And the annual spread of sponsors is on full display at the start of the season.
The deal with the Daytona 500, people come from all over the world. You got new cars, new drivers, new sponsors, and new fans.
For those fans, sponsorships and the race teams they represent are what make the sport worth watching year-round.
So in most professional sports, sponsorship is a nice to have. But in NASCAR, sponsorship is a have to have.
So what exactly do sponsorships mean? Well, in NASCAR, they're what fund a race team, helping it develop everything from the pit crew to the equipment and gear. In exchange, the sponsor becomes an official partner of the race team, with its brand and logo on full display for the average 2.8 million TV viewers per race to see. Not to mention the tens of thousands of fans in the stands at the raceways.
Why don't NASCAR teams have mascots? Because we probably cover them up with a sponsor like FedEx or Bass Pro Shops.
Last year, some 1,400 brands bought media or sponsorships for NASCAR race teams, with each team averaging about 30 deals. It's big business, not just for the race teams, but NASCAR itself. In 2023, the annual sponsorship value for NASCAR was over $425 million, with Sunoco, Goodyear, Mobil 1, and Xfinity being the largest investors in the sport. But there's trouble ahead on the track for American auto racing. Viewership for NASCAR's Cup Series was down 5% last year. And as viewership has gone down, so have sponsorship deals. In 2015, NASCAR had some 130 Fortune 500 companies as sponsors. Fast forward to 2023, and the number of Fortune 500 sponsorship deals has dropped by more than half, standing at just 58. Yet despite the downward trend, NASCAR partnerships remain the most recognizable in all sports. In 2023, NASCAR sponsorships with Goodyear and Coca-Cola were the most notable among fans. As for NASCAR lovers, they remain the most brand loyal fans in all of sports. Isabella Diaz, CGTN.
Okay, let's take a closer look at NASCAR sponsorships and what goes into sponsoring a team and why it is so important. And joining us to talk about that, Mike Bako, the sports editor at dailynational.com. Mike, always a pleasure, my friend.
Good to be with you.
In the spirit of full disclosure, I've actually covered for another entity the Daytona 500 at least 3 times, and I got to talk to all the big racers that you can think of over the years. And what I learned, when you look at those vehicles and all the ads on them, NASCAR puts each and every one in a certain place, I guess designed on where it's going to get the most eyeballs. And explain to us why sponsorships are so crucial, because it costs millions of dollars to put each of these teams together.
It costs millions of dollars to put each team together, develop the cars, develop the new technology, transport them from race to race. There's 38 different races throughout the course of the year. So you're talking about multiple millions of dollars a year just to compete in the races, just to have your cars in the race. This is not like professional baseball where you're shipping a bunch of bats and helmets and like the players are the entity. So much of this money goes into literally just getting to the starting gate, to the starting line.
Right.
So when you think about how much money is being brought in, average team sponsorships between $25 and $30 million a year, that was about a decade ago. Now they're raking in between $20 and $25 million a year. So that is a big drop off. Not only are the ratings dropping off, the sponsorships and the number of sponsors are dropping off.
Why do you think that is?
Because there's a lot of competition out there for NASCAR. When you think about, there's going to be a lot of people who may quibble with this, but when we talk about the business aspect of things, the heyday of NASCAR was about 15 or so years ago, pre the economic collapse of 2008, when average viewership for the Daytona 500, that's happening today, was about 18 million. Last year's race was 8 million. So that's a big drop off. So right now in the public consciousness, it had the kind of momentum going there, but attendance was down, viewership has been down. And what's really sucking some of that sponsorship money out? NBA, MLB. Now you could advertise on their jerseys, and their jerseys are on the players, and you're getting multiple shots a game. Virtually every shot, every at-bat, you're going to see a patch on a Major League Baseball player. Every time a player is at the free throw line, you're going to see that patch. So there's a lot of other opportunities for brands to get sponsorships with. Also, when you just think about sponsoring arenas, sponsoring different, college bowl games, there's a lot of opportunities out there for these brands.
Well, one thing I will say, NASCAR fans are brand loyal. If you're going to buy Goodyear tires, you're going to eat M&Ms, you're going to drink Mountain Dew, because those sponsors are all on the vehicles. Why is that so important, and why do you think NASCAR fans are so brand loyal?
NASCAR fans are so brand loyal because you love a racer, you love a team, you want to think about Dale Earnhardt, who he raced for, who else was on that team, the tradition that goes into that. It's not exactly the same as being a Dallas Cowboy fan or a Pittsburgh Steeler fan, but there is that loyalty that's built into it. So yes, when someone does have Goodyear as a sponsor, or does have Geico as a sponsor, or Coca-Cola, Busch Beer is one of the biggest sponsors in all of NASCAR, that's a pretty big deal. But just recently, that brand loyalty can only go so far. Joe Gibbs Racing, the famed NFL Hall of Fame Super Bowl winning football coach, now has been a NASCAR team owner for many, many decades. They just lost a $25 million sponsorship with M&M. So that's a big deal for them. Brand loyalty only goes so far when they have to cobble together a whole bunch of other sponsorship deals to make up that $25 million. It's become a lot more transactional now than over the past few decades.
So the obvious question, can racing survive without these big sponsors? I mean, it's an expensive sport.
It's certainly an expensive sport, but they're following the model of one of their rivals. They're following the model of F1. They're getting into a sponsorship deal to produce a documentary series on Netflix to broaden their audience. It did amazing wonders for F1. It was a very niche European sport. All of a sudden, they have this Netflix series. People are watching, they're becoming invested. Next thing you know, F1 ratings are going through the roof, almost doubling here in the US. They've got a race in Las Vegas and completely transforming the city. So that's what NASCAR is hoping to do with Netflix, broaden their appeal, not only in the States, humanizing the drivers. Bubba Wallace, Denny Hamlin, some of these racers that are involved, they're trying to humanize them, broaden the appeal so that it's not just those diehards that are watching year in and year out.
So also, it's changed. NASCAR global viewership, international viewership, and it's not just a Southern sport where you have some good old boys rubbing paint down in the corner. I mean, you've got guys who have media training, they go out there, they're loyal to sponsors, they do everything right. How has NASCAR changed in that way, and that's got to be good for sponsorship?
It has to. It is great for sponsorship. You have drivers now who are not those good old boys, as you were saying. They're very media friendly. They're willing to talk to the media. Not everything is this, combativeness that it was in years past. Well, Dale Earnhardt would drive you off into the side of the boards just to get ahead in the race. Obviously, they're still doing that, but they're coming out and they're smiling. Jeff Gordon from years back. So many other racers have seen the pot of gold at the other end. If they do have that media training, if they do put themselves out there and go on the late night talk shows or some of these other endorsement endeavors. So that's where they're kind of trying to make the drivers front and center, but also going into areas here in the Northeast where I am. They're trying to get races up in Connecticut. They're trying to get races in New York. So they're trying to expand not only who they're appealing to, but where they're racing as well.